Can Christians be Freemasons? Yeah, what's going on, party people in the place to be? I go by the name of the BK Apologist, transmitting all the way live. New York is the city, Brooklyn is the borough. What's good? What's popping? Hope everybody's having a good day thus far. Um, of course, we gotta say what's up to the party people in the chat. We got Greater Works in the building. We got CMB, the ambassador. We got the indelible, the incredible Nate 2D2. We got Tyler Lott in the building. Oh man, this is good. This is good. Um, the new bodega lady is in the building. And of course, as always, if you have not yet already, tell a friend to tell a friend that's him again. Please share this link. And if you like how it goes down with the BK, please show your appreciation by throwing a little digital coinage at the PayPal. And if you want to be a monthly supporter of BK, you can become a patron. We get an assortment of goodies to enhance your personal Bible study. So yeah, man. So, oh, you hear it, huh? It's static, right? Oh man, it's crazy. All right, let me see if I can fix that. Hold on. All right, 1 2 1 2. Can you guys hear me? Hello, hello, hello. How it sounds? How it sounds? Somebody tell me something. Is the feedback gone? I'm waiting for the chat. Let me know that the feedback is gone. Thank you, Dr. Falk. So, all right, great, great, great. That's what's up. So yeah, so it's a it's a topic that can be a little sensitive for certain people, but you know, we in the UA, you know, we're not scared to speak about things that need to be approached. And of course, the title of today is "Can Christians be Freemasons?" Right? The short answer to that is no. No, they cannot. But why is that the case? Um, you know, oh man, I haven't seen this dude in a minute. What up, man? What's going on, sir? What's up? What's up? What's up? But so yeah, so we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it. So let's share the screen. It's gonna be a lot of reading, but I think it's important for us to see these things. So this is from Egyptosophy and Hermeticism in Esoteric European Tradition by Barbara de Poli. The Egyptosophical themes crossed the Middle Ages like an underground river, gradually growing as European culture began to receive the Hermetic wisdom cultivated in the Orient by the Arabs and transferred to the West through the Holy Land during the Crusades, but especially through southern Italy and Muslim Spain. The faith of confrontation and encounter with the Islamic world, which characterized the centuries from 11th to the 14th, would be decisive for the recovery of Egypt's official myth in European culture and its later interjection into Masonic culture. In this key, especially between the second half of the 18th and first half of the 19th century, Freemasons contributed significantly to enriching not only Egyptian mythology, but also to enriching Egyptosophical, man, I always mess up this word, Egyptosophical, yeah, sophical literature of a Hermetic orientation. Now, some of you are probably wondering, well, what is this Hermetic literature that we're discussing here? Well, I'm glad you asked. The cult of Hermes Trismegistus had claimed to preserve the teachings of the greatest sage of Egypt. Many took these assertions for granted, and the thrice great Hermes was held as the source of the most ancient mysteries and sometimes worshipped as a god. In some texts, he was addressed as, quote, king of all knowledge and father and teacher of all, and identified as teacher of Osiris and Isis. So this Hermetic, what's known as the Corpus Hermeticum, is supposedly derived from this wise sage by the name of Hermes Trismegistus, that supposedly all the great teachings of spirituality stem from. Okay, so this is so when people talk about the Corpus Hermeticum or Hermeticism, they're talking about Hermes Trismegistus. Okay, what is undeniable is that modern Masonry, founded in 1717, presented itself as the deposit of a tradition which provided continuity to many typical features of Renaissance Hermeticism: initiation, secrecy, the use of symbolic apparatus to illustrate metaphysical concepts, the presence of Kabbalistic references, all aspects supporting a philosophical religion honoring cosmic unity, in this case, the grand architect of the universe. Right? So the Freemasons definitely grabbed a hold of this hermetic literature when it comes to formulating their own organization. The Egyptian Thoth is the equivalent. Now, this is from a book entitled A Bridge to Light" by R. Hitchens, Rex R. Hitchens. This is considered a major staple within Freemasonry, this particular book. So this is what this book says about Thoth, about Hermes. The Egyptian Thoth is their equivalent to the Grecian Hermes and the Roman Mercury, the true grand master of all symbolic lodges. From the earliest Masonic manuscripts, we see Hermes represented as the ideal of the master of the lodge, and in some traditions, is even said to be the founder of Masonry. Pike, in his second lecture in Masonic Symbolism, page 262, makes the following observation: the master clothed in blue and gold of the Masons of a century and a half ago was Hermes, and Hermes and Mercury were the same. He is the master of the lodge, associated with the sun and moon. So, according to this very well respected book, when it talks about Hermes Trismegistus, it's making the claim that Hermes himself is the founder and master of Masonry, right? This is what it's saying here. So now the Hermetic movement, whose greatest thinker was Giordano Bruno, took inspiration from a body of mystic writings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, a supposed Egyptian sage often identified with the god Thoth. In reality, the works thought to be those of Hermes dated from the second and third centuries CE. But belief in this vast age, Egyptian origins, and mystic power was widespread, not knowing that the sacred text actually post dated Jesus. Adepts were also impressed by the seemingly uncanny anticipations of Christian teaching they contain Hermetic doctrine. This is from Afrocentrism, Mythical Paths, and Imagined Homes by Stephen Howe. So this Hermetic movement, right, stems from the writings of Hermes Trismegistus, supposed to be this the original sage. I mean, pretty much a godlike wisdom individual who taught the gods of Egypt, right? And that all religions, including Christianity, borrow heavily from this thrice great Hermes. But in reality, this Corpus Hermeticum, this literature, actually comes second and third centuries Common Era. So it's actually the other way around. It's not that Christianity borrows from Trismegistus. Whoever wrote this corpus is actually borrowing from Christianity. Uh, the influence of Egyptophy on Western civilization lasted well beyond Renaissance and Reformation, with little concern for Casaubon, who in 1614 had definitely dated the Corpus Hermeticum to the first centuries of the Common Era, depriving it of all its aura of ancestral antiquity and especially leaving it an orphan of the god Hermes. You see, we talk about the kindness community in other videos. We talked about Casaubon, how during the Counter Reformation, him being a classicist was able to look at the Corpus Hermeticum and see, based on the type of Greek that was being used, among other things, what proves that this is a late date. There's nothing ancient about Trismegistus. This is the second, third century Common Era corpus of literature. Evolving in different forms and manifestations, Egyptophy arrived regenerated in the times of the Enlightenment, also because of its unique combination with politics and European culture, especially in Masonic culture. Esoteric Egypt, with its doctrinal and iconographic apparatus, thus took on maximum visibility during the second half of the 18th century. This is from The Origins of Jesus Mysticism, Confused Esoterica, and Angry Polemic by Albert Malhenny. It was left to Isaac Casaubon, one of the greatest classical scholars of his day, to break the spell of Hermeticism held on the Renaissance mind. In a critique of Hermeticism placed within a Protestant polemical work, debunking a counter-Reformation church history. However, as it had appeared in a treatise not directly dealing with Hermeticism, Casaubon's strong salvos against the movement took time to be widely circulated among Hermeticists. However, once the implications of this systemic dismantling of Hermeticism was absorbed, the Hermetic revival began collapsing like a house of cards. So we see here that the thing that the Freemasons at this time was utilizing was false. This is not an ancient sage writings. This is something that happened very much in what they would consider modern times. Okay. Casaubon's careful analysis detected the clear style and usage of late antiquity in the Corpus Hermeticum. He demonstrated the texts originated in this period were likely written after the New Testament, and any proposed authorship in ancient Egypt was untenable. Corpus Hermeticum was a product of the first few centuries AD without any connection to an ancient Egyptian sage. In other words, Corpus Hermeticum was a fraud. So many of the inspiration and rituals that's taken from the Corpus Hermeticum from and implemented within Freemasonry is basically a fraud. It's not even real, right? It claims to be ancient Kemetic science and spirituality. It is not. It was debunked since the 17th century. Okay, so these developments, which coincided with renewed Masonic activity in France after 1801, especially as already noted with the spread of lodges drawing their inspiration from Egypt, were widely supported by eminent scholars, all Masonic affiliates. Among these, Cote de Gebling, winner of several awards in the Académie Francaise, I'm butchering this, I'm sorry, who in his work Le Monde Primitif analyse et compare avec le monde moderne, maintained that Paris was called after Baris, the name of the vessel of Isis, goddess of navigation, to whom the early cult of the city was dedicated, and that the Cathedral of Notre Dame was founded on the remains of a temple devoted to her. The theme was also taken up with some variations by the intellectual and uh, Giordanus Nicolas de Bonneville, who in the Esprit des Religions went so far as to associate Isis with Jesus. So we see some of the stuff that we're seeing today in the conscious community coming from these Masonic affiliates. from the 18th century, right? And a lot of it is based on Hermes Trismegistus, who was debunked since the 17th century. Another book that Freemasons borrow a lot from, right, is Cephos, History of Life, taken from the Anecdotes of Ancient Egypt, translated from a Greek manuscript, right? The earliest descriptions of academies for Egyptian priests were large libraries and art galleries. In fact, first occurs not in ancient texts, but in the 18th century French work of historical fiction, the 1732 novel Cephals by Abbé Jean Terrasson. Terrasson's novel was widely read. It had a profound influence on portrayals of Egyptian religion in later literature, such as Mozart's Magic Flute. This is from Stolen Legacy, Mythical History, from Mary Lefkowitz. Uh, in 1731, classicist and philosopher Jean Terrasson published his only work of fiction, Cephos' History of Life, from the Monuments Anecdotes of Ancient Egypt. The novel, set 2 generations before the Trojan War, is a biography of the Egyptian prince Cephos that describes his education, his initiation into a secret society of priests, his travels through Africa, and his eventual return to Egypt. Although the novel was initially only moderately successful, over the next century, 6 French editions were published, in addition to 7 translations into English, German, Italian, and Russian, suggesting that Cephals had a wide and varied readership. In particular, initiation of Terrasson's herald into the Egyptian priesthood served as the inspiration for Masonic rituals. It is understandable that the Masons in the 18th century, when these rituals were established, regarded them as both ancient and Egyptian, since they had no other means of knowing about Egyptian religion than from Greek and Roman sources, and the later European accounts that were based on them. All authentic information about early Egyptian religion was inaccessible to them because the documents that described it could not be read before 1836, when the Rosetta Stone was discovered and hieroglyphics were finally deciphered. So they wanted to use ancient Egyptian rituals, but no one could read the hieroglyphics. So they decided to use this fictional account that was written by Abel Terrasson. It is certainly understandable that Terrasson was unable to distinguish Greek rituals from indigenous Egyptian rituals. He could not read any of the inscriptions or papyri that describe ancient Egyptian rites and beliefs, since they were written in Egyptian alphabet such as hieroglyphics or hieratic script, which no one at the time could read. So this Mr. Teddelson is just freestyling. It's a fictional account of ancient Egyptian rituals. That's what this book is, and this is where many of the Freemasons draw their rituals from a fictional account. Okay. The impact of Tedderson's novel on the popular image of Egypt was far greater than the truly scholarly works that were being published during the 18th century. Freemasons in France used Cephals as a handbook for creating their own Egyptianized rituals. Let me say that again. Freemasons in France used Cephals as a handbook for creating their own Egyptianized rituals, right? Fan fiction. Their rituals are being inspired and being drawn from fan fiction of ancient Egypt. Mozart's popular Magic Flute was a collaboration with a Mason, Emmanuel Skelkenader, which borrowed elements of its plot and scenes from Cephals. Okay. Terrasson's ancient Egypt is simply an idolized version of 18th century Europe with a Hermetic emphasis. Such an Egypt met the needs of Tedderson's plot in a way that a true depiction of ancient Egypt could never have done, even if such knowledge had been available in 1731. Despite being a very long and sometimes tedious novel, Cephals was very popular in the 18th century and was translated from French into English and German. It influenced Masonic thinking and rituals at the time, and in the mid 20th century would be used for Afrocentric purposes by George D.M. James. This is from Egyptomania, A History of Fascination, Obsession, and Fantasy by Ronald H. Fritzie. Right? Okay, how we doing? How we doing? We doing all right? All right, cool. Let's keep going. This route of trials clearly derived from Abel Jean Tedderson's prolix novel Cephals, a work which rapidly became identified with Egyptian mysteries. So when you hear people like in the conscious community talk about Egyptian mysteries, what they may not know the origin of this concept, it comes from this fan fiction. And here's the page from an actual copy of the book, The Life of Cephals, taken from private memoirs of the ancient Egyptians. Right? So, and this is from Antiquity Imagined, the Remarkable Legacy of Egypt and the Ancient Near East by Robin Dedecourt. An influential early novel by French priest Jean Tedesson was published in 1731 in France and the following year in Germany and in England under the title Life of Cephals, taken from private memoirs of the ancient Egyptians, Cephals being the name of an Egyptian pharaoh in Herodotus' histories. The book's title page describes it as translated from a Greek manuscript, and the opening passage maintains the image of a quote, discovered work. And here's the quote from this actual book. The Greek manuscript, of which I here offer the public a translation, was found in the library of a foreign nation. Extremely jealous of this sort of treasure, the author is nowhere named, but we find several passages in this work that he was a Greek born and lived in Alexandria under the reign of Marcus Aurelius. There is no room to doubt, but this work is a fiction. The guy who writes the Life of Cephals gives up the game from the very beginning of the book. He's like, yeah, this is you know a special secret Greek manuscript that discovered from this foreign nation, but this is a work of fiction. He says it in the book, so it's not like he's trying to game everybody into thinking that this is an actual manuscript that he's translating. Like, no, this is fan fiction. The 18th century welcome works of fiction set in hermetic or mystic versions of ancient Egypt. Abbe Jean Tedesson, a priest and a professor of classical languages at the Collège de France, began this literary trend. In 1731, he brought out a long novel in 3 volumes titled Cephals, a history or biography based on unpublished memoirs of ancient Egypt. The novel uses the literary device of claiming to be a translation of an old manuscript by a nameless Greek from the 2nd century AD. Tedderson, however, assures his readers that Cephals is fiction. He tells them right off the bat. But also, he claims it was based on authentic ancient sources. As a result, many people took the novel to be reliably accurate historical account in a similar way to how Dan Brown did the Da Vinci Code, right? So before the Da Vinci Code, you had Life of Cephals. You know what I mean? So yeah, and Dr. Falk here says, well, anything from Tedderson will always be a mistake. Yeah, it's fan fiction, guys. It's fan fiction. And he tells you as much. But yet, for some reason, the Freemasons decide, hey, this sounds like it's pretty reliable. Let's incorporate that into our rituals. Okay. Uh, at the beginning, this is from Mysteries of Isis, Jean Tedderson Cephals, and European Fantasies of Ancient Egypt by Margaret. Oh, I forgot to put her last name. All right. At the beginning of book 3, Cephals is a teenager and beginning to accomplish feats of bravery. such as the defeat of an enormous serpent that has been menacing an entire region of Egypt. When he is 16, Amadeus receives the Lucas permission to travel with Cephalus outside of Egypt, but instead they remain in Memphis, where Cephalus seeks initiation into a secret priesthood. Cephalus enters the Great Pyramid with Amadeus through a window, descends a deep well, and follows a series of subterranean passages to the site of the three initiation rites based on the elements. In the first initiation, fire, Cephalus must walk through flames across a red hot iron grate. The second test, water, requires Cephalus to swim across the wide subterranean canal. And the final test, air, Cephalus must hold two iron rings while suspended high in the air in strong winds. Once he passes these three tests, Cephalus undergoes a long period of instruction and intellectual initiations before he is eventually invited to seek initiation into the mysteries of Isis. By the end of book four, Cephalus has completed the process of initiation and officially becomes a member of the secret order of priests in a public ceremony. Right? This is the basic premise of that book, which is a fiction that the author says himself, based on Hermetic influences, which was also debunked by the 17th century, right? And another thing that's used by the Masons is the Rosicrucian manifestos, which circulated in the 17th century, contributed to a welding together of Hermeticism, alchemy, and Kabbalistic symbolism inside British lodges, where one finds the first evidence of acceptance of non-operative Masons who stood out because of their special interest in esotericism. So not only did they use the Corpus Hermeticum, which got debunked 17th century, and a fictional account of ancient Egypt from Life of Cephalus, they also used the Rosicrucian manifestos. Now, what's the issue with Rosicrucianism? Well, the entire account of Christian Rosencreutz was fictional. He never existed. There was no Order of the Rosy Cross, and the story was partly based on a satirical work by Trevino Bosoliti. So I want you to look at the sources that's being drawn from by the Freemasons, right? The Corpus Hermeticum, debunked, not ancient, very modern. Uh, Life of Cephalus, fan fiction account of ancient Egypt initiation rituals, and the book itself tells you it's fan fiction. And the Rosy Cross, Rosicrucianism, fictional as well. This is all fiction. Nothing here is true. Now, why is this problematic for the Christian? Right? Well, we see even in the Old Testament, right? Leviticus 18, verse 3. Do not follow the practices of the land of Egypt, where you used to live, or follow the practices of the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you. You must not follow their customs. So, Freemasonry, very desperately from its very beginning, was trying to follow the practices of Egypt. Now, they failed because it wasn't the practices of Egypt, but that was the goal. That's what they were shooting for, right? So one, they're looking for a spirituality that is not of God, of the Bible, and that spirituality was a fraud anyway. So it's like two strikes against them. Two strikes. Isaiah 19 and verse 23. In that day there will be a highway from Egypt to Assyria, and Assyria will come into Egypt, and Egypt into Assyria, and the Egyptians will worship with the Assyrians. In that day, Israel will be third with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing in the midst of the earth, whom the Lord of hosts has blessed, saying, Blessed be Egypt, my people, and Assyria, the work of my hands, and Israel, my inheritance. So the prophet is prophesying that these people from Egypt would no longer even use those ancient practices, even though those practices that the Masons had was fake. But even if it was true, Egypt was prophesied to let that go and follow Yahweh anyway. That was the goal. right? Israel was going to be third, right? Blessed be Egypt, my people. They were prophesied to let that stuff go and follow the Bible. But here, the Masons are working backwards. All right. Um, Another issue. So one issue about being a Christian and being a Freemason is, like, again, you're practicing a contrary belief system, right? Cephals was being initiated into the cult of Isis. Isis is a goddess. Isis is not Yahweh. And to make matters worse, it wasn't real to begin with anyway, right? So we have an issue of idolatry, right? And we have an issue of just fan fiction, right? We do not, partake in fiction. Though people will say that we do as believers, we do not take that, right? We believe that we follow Jesus. We are Christians because we believe it best purports with reality, right? So that is in contention with what the Freemasons were doing with this fraudulent literature that was debunked centuries ago. But another issue a Christian would have with being a Freemason is Freemasons' uh, universal universality. Right now, this is from the Lost Keys of Freemasonry, page 65. It says, "The true Mason is not creed bound. He realizes with the divine illumination of his lodge that as a Mason, his religion must be universal. Christ, Buddha, or Muhammad, the name means little, for he recognizes only the light and not the bearer." That's just crazy, right? He recognizes only the light and not the bearer. He worships at every shrine, bows before every altar, whether in temple, mosque, or cathedral, realizing that his true understanding the oneness of all spiritual truth. So, according to the Lost Keys of Freemasonry, listen, Christ, Buddha, whatever you want to call it, as long as it's some kind of spirituality, get ahead. It doesn't matter, right? And this is from Mackey's Revised Encyclopedia of Freemasonry. Be assured that God is equally present with the pious Hindu in this temple, the Jew in the synagogue, the Muslim in the mosque, and the Christian in the church. Right? There is no difference here. Synagogue, mosque, church, cathedral, synagogue makes no difference. It's all the same, according to the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry. Now, this here, in 1723, Dr. James Anderson and a Grand Lodge committee crafted a new set of rules for Masonic lodges based on the old laws passed down from the Middle Ages. This document has been adopted today by most Grand Lodges, and nearly every Masonic lodge in the world is required to read these rules or a version of them aloud at least once every year. They are sometimes referred to as the ancient charges. This version includes the original spelling, punctuation, and capitalization from the edition published in 1723. Right? This is from Freemasons for Dummies, Christopher Hodat. Right? It's the constitutions of the Freemasons. So let's read a little bit of this. A Mason is obliged by his tenure to obey the moral law, and if he rightly understands the arts, he will never be a stupid atheist, nor a irreligious libertine. But through ancient times, Masons were charged in every country to be of the religion of that country or nation, whatever it was. Yet it is now thought more expedient only to oblige them to that religion in which all men agree, leaving their particular opinions to themselves, that is, to be good men and true, or men of honor and honesty, by whatever denominations or persuasions they may be distinguished, whereby Masonry becomes the center of union and the means of facilitating true friendship among persons that must have remained at a perpetual distance. So according to these constitutions of Freemasonry, you basically adhere to the main religion of whatever country or nation you're at. Or, you know, even in that part of the nation, pick the one that, that most people agree with at that time, right? It's a universality. It doesn't really matter what it is. Whatever that nation country believes in, just go with the flow, right? Which again is antithetical to the Bible, right? So John 14 verse 6, Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus is the way, not one of the ways. Jesus doesn't share his way with other beings. Jesus, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Acts 4, verse 12. And there is salvation in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given among men by which we must be saved. No other name. No Hindu, no Muhammad, no nothing. Jesus, no other name. First Timothy 2, verse 5. For there's one God, and there is one mediator between God and men, the man Christ Jesus. No one else. No one else at all. First Corinthians 6. Yet for us there is one God, the Father, from whom are all things and for whom we exist, and one Lord, Jesus Christ. Through him are all things and through whom we exist. God does not share his glory with any other deity. If you are a Christian, you have one God and one Lord, one mediator. You cannot lock arms with a group of people that do not agree with this. He is one way, he is the way. Whereas Freemasonry teaches something totally different. It's like, hey, as long as you believe in some kind of God, as long as you believe in the God of that particular nation that you reside in, then you're good. No, you're not. No, you're not. Not if you're a Christian. Not if you're a Christian. So Dr. Falk here says Freemasonry will have you swear allegiance to the fragmented God that they believe is behind Yahweh, Baal, Isis, splinters of the divine essence, is essentially a celebration of Gnostic aeons. Well, yeah, whatever floats your boat spiritually is pretty much what they would go with. What they would go with. You know what I mean? So yes, however, the Rosicrucians have a great museum in San Jose, and I'm sure you could glean a lot of information from them. But at the same time, at the same time, as you know, to create your theology based on fictional accounts, satirical accounts, when it comes to Rosicrucianism, is wild, right? So yeah, so these are the reasons why, if you are a Christian, you can't be a Freemason. One, the rituals are about being initiated into other gods. Two, those initiations are fraudulent to begin with. It's nothing more than Greco-Roman fan fiction, and they are universalists. They believe, as long as you believe in some God, that you're fine. We as Christians cannot abide by that at all. We believe one God, one Lord, one mediator, Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, right? And Dr. Falk, Freemasons also claim that there are many paths to God, but they have secret rituals and knowledge that will get you in good with the path of salvation, which actually sounds very much like a works-based salvation, right? Which is another issue we would have as Christians. So now these are just 2 points. There's other things that one could argue that a Christian should not partake in Freemasonry. I picked these two 'cause I think these are very solid, two very solid reasons not to be a Freemason. Right, the idea of entangling yourself in alleged comedic, spirituality, and the universalist perspective. As a Christian, you cannot partake in either of those things at all. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share. And I'm sure a lot of us have friends and family. We have people in our churches that are Freemasons. You know, um, if you have that kind of relationship with them, you should sit down, just have a good conversation, and just ask them questions. Ask them if they know anything about these things, because there's a good chance that they don't. You know, so and or if someone tries to get you to become part of a lodge, you have to explain why you will not. It doesn't mean that you love the people in the lodge any less, but when you say Jesus is Lord, you have one Lord. It's not Lord A and Lord B and Lord. No, it's just Jesus is Lord. Period. Full stop. Right. So yeah. So no, Christians cannot be Freemasons. So I hope this was beneficial. Did you learn some things? and and listen, you also got to be careful how you give this information to people too, because we might be overzealous and we just start shooting people, blah blah. Hold that, you know what I mean? Like you want to, build relationships so you can have this kind of a dialogue with them. You know what I mean? Because again, if you believe something for so long, then here you come and within 30 minutes you dismantle it. That hurts. That's a hard pill to swallow. So while you're having these conversations, make sure it's peppered with a lot of grace and a lot of patience, right? So he's like that too late. David's funny. Oh man. So but yeah, you know, that's what it is, guys. So no, you cannot be a Freemason if Jesus is your Lord. Yes, doctor, and a lot of prayer. Yeah, because these are not easy conversations to have. If someone has a deep conviction about these things, then here you come and you unravel all these things. You know, that's hard. They're gonna go through, cognitive dissonance, anger at you first, and then at themselves. Like, man, how did I fall into this stuff? And you want to be a good friend and really hold their hand throughout the whole process, because it's a process. It's a process. You know, a lot of you in the chat believe there's some very interesting things, but someone took the time to love you and was patient with you to help you. So now it's your turn. It's your turn to do that. It's your turn to be a good friend, to be a shepherd. You know. So, but yeah, man, that's what I want to share with you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You learned some things, and again, please share it with everybody you know. And yeah, just get the word out and let's help people, stay on the narrow road of the gospel, right? So with that being said, I'm out. Peace.